Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very incredible experience to share with you. It really does go along with everything that we talk about on this channel. The delivery method was what made it all the more interesting, I feel, because it was told to me via third party, but also in second party at the same sense. In meaning there were two different encounters that happened at the same time in the same location, and truly a really mind-blowing event. Before we get into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's upload, shall we? Okay, so early December 2023, I was contacted by a subscriber. His name is Dana, and he lives out in Idaho. Now, I had, at the time, my dad had just gotten sick. I was commuting back and forth with my mom, bringing my mom to Albany, which is about an hour and 20 minutes away from our hometown. And I was talking to the gentleman from Meeker. I had just gotten the DNA samples and such. So we really couldn't get together like he wanted to. And he was also going through some stuff. He was going through his own personal issues at the time. So he said to me, how about we wait until I'm set with what I'm going through right now, and whatever happens with your side, we can talk whenever you're ready. And around July of 2024, I had emailed him and said, hey, my dad is home, and he's on the mend after 7 months of being in the hospital. Let me know when you are free. And so, as I've said, I've been going through emails and such. I've got some new ones that just got sent, encounters from subscribers from the live stream and such. And I get to Dana's. I didn't recognize it at first. And it was actually, I was looking for a different email, and it was in my spam folder, which I found a couple of other emails from subscribers in my spam folder as well. So I open it up, and I'm instantly like, oh, wow, I've been a while since I've talked to this guy, let him know back a couple months, almost a year now that, hey, I'm free whenever you are. And apparently, he had to go through whatever he was going through. I know, it's just not my place to share. So he was and does live in Idaho. Now, growing up, I grew up here in the Adirondacks. You know, we have lakes, mountains. It's very serene and beautiful. I either thought that all of the rest of the country looked like this, or how things are depicted in TV, or what you hear from influence as you're growing up. And Idaho, for some reason, I always thought was completely flat. You know, just potato growing, flat farmers, no mountains. And boy, was I ever wrong. You know, and obviously I'm not new to finding that out, but I just didn't realize how mountainous and how desolate of a place Idaho really is. On top of being absolutely a beautiful, one of the most beautiful estates in this beautiful country we live in. So he starts the conversation off with, you know, I got a story I need to get off my chest. I had to wait for what I had to go through because a lot of it involved a person that was part of this process that I was going through. And he then states to me I was and still am a search and rescue. I also work for the Department of Conservation and such. I don't care if you share my real name. I really don't. He's at the point where he's about my age and kind of just fed up with everything. So he had gotten the position that he has right now from his father-in-law. Now, in a little location, it starts out in a little location called New Meadows, Idaho. And there is a national park right near it called Payette National Park. Now, a couple of guys had gone missing, and they had been reported missing by the family. But what was strange, and the family members kept bringing it up, was, you know, these guys have hiked, fished, hunted these mountains, this land for, you know, 20 something years. They're very intelligent, and they wouldn't do anything stupid to jeopardize their safety. More or less, they were outdoorsmen, but they were very experienced, as in they wouldn't put themselves, you know, you've got those outdoorsmen that will just, I'm a hiker, you know, and then they just go out and whatever happens. They don't pre-plan anything, they just go. Totally opposite for these guys. They both have are fairly wealthy, fairly well off. Both parties had sat phones and had all of the kind of best equipment to be out in this remote region of Idaho. And when I say remote, it is extremely mountainous, and there is nothing out there. Like, it can take you roughly a day in this terrain that they are in to navigate a couple of miles. It is harsh terrain, but absolutely beautiful landscape. So it starts out, these guys, they are not from the town of New Meadows, Idaho, but this is where they started their adventure out. They'd gone up there and started their journey into the Payette National Forest. What they were going to do is they were going to hike along some creeks in that region. They had it mapped out, and they did share their journey with their family. You know, they were going to hike into Payette, follow West Fork Xena Creek, and keep on going till they hit a creek called Government Creek. Probably stay in that region for a little bit and then turn back and hike back out. It was supposed to be about 9 to 10 days. They said, max, if you don't hear from us in 11 days, max, send help. We will, you know, every day or two, give you a little holler on the sat phone. Not long, but, you know, just so you know that we're okay. And that's what I mean when these guys they had pre-planned everything very, very intelligently, you know. And I have to emphasize that because still right now there is a missing hiker that is in the Adirondacks right now on a mountain that I've climbed. And Adirondack Explorer magazine and other news periodicals state how this 22-year-old kid from Canada is an intermediate hiker and, you know, very skilled, this and that. Not an expert, but, you know, better than a beginner. Which, judging from how everything went, he either was definitely not, or some really weird stuff happened to him, and that's why they haven't found him yet. Which I do think we may be getting some news that they found his body. If they don't, that is a whole different ballgame, because where he disappeared, they should, and if he did get stuck in any kind of snow trap or whatnot, like a pocket by a pine tree or any kind of whatever, with the onset of spring, summer, they will or should find him. If they don't, then we may have a Tom Mezek case, another Tom Mezek case on our hands in the Adirondacks, which there are more than just Tom. So they start out on their trip, and I guess into maybe the 4th or 5th day is the last time that both men's families get a kind of heads up. Hey, we're here. You know, we're doing all right. Yada, yada. Everything's good. There was no sense of panic or any kind of worry in their voices. Everything sounded like it was the way it was supposed to go in this trip. Now, mind you, these guys have done trips like this before. I don't know if they did this trip prior to that or not, and nor does Dana. But he did tell me how these guys were very, you know, they were very skilled at this is something they did for, you know, a pastime, and being financially well off, had the money to train and had the money to plan and had the money for like I said, the best, you know. So this kind of goes to show, even with the best, shit can go south real quick. So 4th or 5th day, the family gets the A-OK, and nothing sounds remotely even like anything is going bad. Now, on the 6th day, and that is an exact number of days because Dana remembers that was in the search and rescue information that last heard 6 days into their trip. He says 4 or 5 with the last call because he's not aware of that. He's only going off of a conversation he had when this occurred. Now, also this occurred in 2013. So The 6th day, one of the wives of these men gets a kind of SOS on one of their GPS unit tracker things that is attached to her home computer. No kind of information, nothing except a SOS. So immediately she notifies the Idaho State Police and lets them know, hey, this is what's going on. Actually, no, immediately she notifies the other man's wife, asks her if she knows anything. Then they notify the state police and they fill them in on what's going on, and who these two men are. And they're fairly well known in I guess the elite class, financially elite class of Idaho. So immediately one of the troopers knows who one of the guys is. And he says, all right, show us what you got and how you know that this was from him. So she proceeds to show him and tell him about the equipment that they both have. And this is how we know. They both have satellite phones, and every couple of days we'd get a call. Hey, we're okay. And the last time we heard anything, they both sounded great, but then I got this. And of course the troopers ask, hey, was there any kind of foul play? Nope. Or not foul play. Was there any kind of reason that there may be foul play for either one of these guys? Or, would one want to harm the other? No. No, they are best of friends, have been best of friends all their lives. They are closer than biological brothers. So then immediately, the rangers, park rangers, conservation are notified, search and rescue and whatnot. And through the next couple of days, there is a kind of plan to find these guys. Everything's, mapped out, marked out, and they have got a couple of search and rescue parties that are going to go from the same way these guys went in, the New Meadows region, and then they're going to land a few search and rescue parties into this area called Bear Creek, where there is a remote airstrip or landing zone for planes and such out there. Very remote. When I say airstrip, this is not an airport. This is not a rural airport on some backcountry road. No, this is for hunters or search and rescue, Department of Conservation, park rangers. This is not your, Uncle Joe is going to fly his Cessna out of this freaking landing strip. Nope. So they drop these parties off, and what they do is they mapped out this line of, okay, they were gonna go on the Xena Creek, the West Fork Xena, and they were gonna get to this Government Creek, and then they were gonna head back out. So boom, they're gonna send both parties in, and like I said, they've mapped this out. Boom, they get them in there. The teams, there are two parties each side, consisting of 5 or 6 guys, park rangers, search and rescue, and some Idaho State Police that volunteered to do this. They're not volunteers that don't have any experience. Probably the least experienced people that Dana said would have been the state police. He is certified as a helicopter pilot, but he, during that time, was co-piloting. So he was not on the ground. He was part of the way to get these teams in, and he would, of course, pick these guys up. Sorry about that. Door was opening because Tigger, the channel mascot, decided to walk in and start talking to me because he wanted treats, because he's such a lovely beast. So also, this from point A to point B is roughly 25 to 30 miles. Now, the terrain, like I said, can take a couple of days to traverse a couple of miles. Like, this is not, straight hiking trail in upstate New York. This is no man's land. This is some deep, treacherous, very expert hiking trails and or land. Now, that is in respect to thinking about a search area, that is a huge search area, because from point A to point B, and then you have to think of where these guys could have wandered off to, meaning this way. So instead of point A to point B, they wander off to C and D. So we are talking thousands of acres. But they've got this planned out, and it's everything is perfect, precise, and right down to it. These are professional search and rescue. This is something that they do, as a living, as a job. They practice it like a firefighter practices fighting fires, like a police officer goes to the shooting range. These guys hone their skills at search and rescue or search and recovery. Now, the first 2 days of both trips walking in, there is very little movement or gain on the parties that are coming from the airstrip, Bear Creek airstrip. They didn't get very far at all. From the Payette National Park entrance where these guys had come into, they were roughly around the same speed that these two guys had been going. So, you've got a good distance and not so good distance, but that plan of still meeting up is going to be what happens. During this time, there are some torrential downpours, some storms, and for some reason, the teams that were coming from Bear Creek to meet the other team that were going in, they had opted to, hey, it's a little dangerous where we are. We're going to have to go off course a little bit to avoid some damage that was done by these storms. And there's a lot of debris, a lot of mud, and it was a unseasonable couple of days of rain. Not so bad on the other side, but rain wise, yeah, but destruction wise of the land, not so bad on the opposite side of the Payette side. So now the team that came from the airstrip are barely any ways from where they initially, they're like 7 miles in 4 days. The terrain is shitty. just, on top of their gridding everything and marking down things and communicating with the headquarters, search and rescue headquarters and such. And hey, this is the second team or first team, whatever you want to look at it, that came in from the same entrance that the two guys came in, had been roughly where the fourth or fifth day call would have been. They did stumble upon a campsite, and they could tell that, obviously the small fire pit that had been constructed wasn't still warm. There had been rain and such, but they could tell that this was the location of, or the last known location of these guys. This is where, on top of the GPS telling them, hey, this is where everyone is. Now, that brings us to the next problem, is the GPS that woman got or had, the SOS thing, was no longer functioning, and nor were the satellite phones. There was kind of nothing functioning, and which would not have been right, because these two men were planners. They made sure that the phones had a full charge. They turned them off after use, put them back in their case, and put them in their bag, and everything was precise with these two. But none of their electronics were working, and there was no way of tracking anything, just using old coordinates from the computer that had been transmitting the coordinates from the last movements of these guys. We'll call Team A the one that went in from where these guys went. Team A then decides, okay, let's let headquarters know that we are at their camp where last known coordinates are. Why don't we have a team move up ahead? We'll search kind of in a gridded area around this area and see, but we'll have one of the two teams continue to meet the party B, two other teams. And so that's the plan. Headquarters agrees. The party that stuck around and is kind of doing a grid kind of search of this area, like acreage wise, just to see if possibly they had gotten off trail, if they had been an animal attack, whatever. They are trying to figure out what and approach it with that professional kind of duties they have. As the second party that was going to meet Team B's, they had gone, and now we're about 12 hours ahead of the team that stayed back. They had radioed into headquarters as they were walking into the trail in the woods to continue to get to Bear Creek and meet Party B. They then are not responding to anything at some point. Probably 5 to 6 hours after leaving the other team members there was no communication from any. There was just no radio contact, nothing. Headquarters, team, nothing. This group of 5 to 6 men just now joined these two men that are missing. So now headquarters states, all right, something is obviously strange. Let's get the helicopter up in the air. Let's get a couple of them. State police, Idaho State Police, the search and rescue company owned a helicopter, and Department of Conservation. So they got 3 helicopters taking turns and going over this grid coordinate that had been mapped out, and in hopes of seeing some sort of signs that the 5 or 6 guys had hooked up with the other 2, and maybe something happened to the equipment, like it had been broken or whatever. These helicopters get up and they start to observe the area. Now, at first they don't see anything, and this is where Dana comes in. So as the helicopters are going over this area, and they are now transmitting and getting transmissions from base stating, hey, if these guys were going X amount of speed, they should be in that area, either from point A to point B or point C to point D. They didn't travel too far out, they are still within a certain radius of their splitting off of the party A. So you've got the 2 helicopters in there doing kind of a aerial grid. They're fairly low and just flying. Now, one of the other pilots or co-pilot in one of the other helicopters that is up in the air at this point, and there's only 2, even though there are 3 helicopters available, there are only 2 in the sky because it would be too much commotion and more than likely a safety measure, because if there was an accident or whatever, he explained it. There's a reason why having 2 instead of 3 up. And then that third one would wait until another helicopter went back to gas up, and then he'd fly out. So this one helicopter team is up in the air, and Dana's on the other side. There's a transmission. What in the hell? What are we looking at? Is never seen anything like this. They look like, we're looking at a small pack of wolves here, but they're about the size of a freaking bear. And they keep circling this kind of outcropping. We're going to try to get as low as possible to see maybe these wolves have the other search and rescue team trapped along with the other 2. But it seemed to these 2 pilots, this co-pilot and pilot, that these wolves, and I'm doing wolves because we know what is as big as a bear and looks like a wolf, is not going past a certain region. It is almost like it's patrolling this little area, and the helicopter kind of does a flyover pretty low. At this point, Dana's and his pilot are flying back over. Radio transmission, da-da-da-da-da. We're coming in to take a look. We'll fly past your area and go a little south from where you are. And that's exactly what they do. But they do make eye contact with these creatures. Dana is in the co-pilot, and his pilot is probably one of the better pilots in the search and rescue company. and one of the better helicopter pilots that Dana has ever met. It was actually his instructor and such when he got his credentials and license to fly helicopters and such. So he's lower than the initial helicopter that saw this, because they want to document what they're seeing and witnessing. As this helicopter goes over, and it is, maybe 15, 20 feet from the top of some trees, they see them, and there's maybe 6, 7 of these creatures. And sure enough, they are almost like they're patrolling this little area and looking for something. And one stands up, and they see it visibly stand up, and it kind of arches and looks directly at their helicopter. And Dana said, I know how far up I was, but I felt like that son of a bitch was staring right into my eyes. It felt like it stared right into my eyes and the pilot's eyes, because he had the same response, and enough to say, get out of here. This is our area. We have whatever is in this area. We are here for that reason. Get out of here. It was just this very animalistic and threatening kind of look. It then drops to all fours. Now this is where third party meets second party, because this is now Dana telling us what he had witnessed. That drops down to all fours and starts to kind of join its pack in searching this area. They fly by, and they kind of do a loop and go back to where they initially were. Transmissions made that, hey, these things are not wolves. I don't know what we just saw, but one stood on its hind legs like it was trying to challenge this helicopter. Transmission from the base is dead silent for maybe 2 minutes. There is no talk at all. There is nothing, no communication. And then right over the radio, everybody fall back to base. Right now, we're sending this other helicopter out, and we want to get another visual. This one has some sort of heat sensing thermal imaging camera on the front of the helicopter. We want to get kind of a good spectrum to see, okay, we can now see with this helicopter, they can see the 6 or 7 of these creatures. But if the 5 or 7, the party of search and rescue with the 2 guys, if they are in that area, they will be able to detect them. It goes out, and it only detects the 6 or 7 Dogmen. No one is like, what the hell are they doing? We can't find our other guys. We've radioed to the other party B. Hey, have you guys made connection with, is their radio broken? Are you having any kind of issues? There are no issues with this team. The radio is working fine. Everything's good. At this point, they are now told to kind of stay stationary where you are, but do go north and south to see if you can see anything. Be very, very vigilant, because there's something very strange on the other side of where you guys are. They land, they come back with the imaging, and sure enough, there's no humans, but these thermal imaging of these creatures. So now it's getting near dark. This is going to be the last. We're in day 5. This is going to be the last day for these search and rescue teams to stay out. They are then going to have to drop off new volunteers or professionals at this job, to this location. What they were going to do is they'd have one helicopter kind of drop another team / party in via that helicopter, and harness them up, drop them down, so they save 5 days from hiking in as these guys hike out. They get up into the area, and this is now Dana again. Dana's back. He's dropping off men. And at one point, we are roughly 6 to 7 o'clock at night. It is just starting to get, dusk. Very beautiful sky. Everything is calm. And there's no storms. There's nothing. It is dusk. It's not bright, but it's not dark at all. So if there was lightning, you'd be able to see it, but there are no storm clouds. And as they start to emerge or get to the location where they just had been earlier in the day, they start spotting these kind of bright lights, just intense lights, glowing for like split second, almost like lightning is hitting the ground and dissipating into the atmosphere or whatever. What the hell, there's no storms, but we got some sort of light anomaly. Do you believe that these guys would be sending flares up to notify us where they are? But it appears, as they are now kind of flying over the area, because a few of the guys wanted to see, hey, what the hell do you mean by wolves the size of bears? Well, we'll fly over and show you where they are and how to avoid them. But now it appears that these dogmen are running away from this area. They are heading into a northern part of the state, and they can't figure out. They're like, well, that's not lightning. Why are these things running away? And as they are making that second loop past, right there, they by sheer luck and nothing but luck, they look down and they see the 5 guys that they had lost contact with and such, coming out of nowhere, presumably. You've got lights as bright as lightning, but not from the sky. And then you've got 5 disoriented search and rescue. And only 5. That means the 2 guys are still out there. These guys are dropped. Boom. The other guys are harnessed up and pulled up onto the helicopter. They are going to get a debriefing to figure out where and what happened. Equipment will be tested. Electrical equipment, GPS, sat phone, everything will be up to tip-top shape. And they get them up on the helicopter. Dana, being search and rescue and co-pilot, also has medical training. So he goes back and he starts talking to the guys. And one of the guys says, at one point when we left the other party here, the other team, we all of us thought we saw these 2 guys walking. They were heading right towards Big Creek, but they didn't. It was almost as if they didn't notice us. We saw them and we yelled out to them, "Hey, we're here for you. Is this you?" Yelling their names, and they're not stopping. They are just like almost in a trance, walking away from them. And then all of a sudden, one of the search and rescue guys is going to send transmission like, hey, we just made contact with these guys, but they are walking away from us. They realize that their sat phone's dead. And they all agree, we've been out here for, 12 days. That's a statement made. And Dana says, he's doing a quick medical exam, not anything special, but are you hurt? Yada, yada, yada. Taking care of dehydration and such. But he says, you've only been here for 5 days. What do you mean 12? And all the guys are like, no, it's been, it's been at least 12 days, including the 5 that, we had been out here initially. So 7 days have passed since we've last had contact with anybody. And they're like, no. You have literally only been gone, X amount of time. And their eyes are in just like disbelief until they get back to the search and rescue base. Medical examiner, EMS are there, medical examiners, giving them a once over, taking them to the hospital because nothing they said made any sense. Obviously, the research or search and rescue base can hear the conversation via the radio and such of what is being said. And so they know exactly like, hey, this is what we're dealing with. These guys think they've been out there for an extra 7 days. But essentially, they've just been wandering around. Everything else is fine. Nothing. There's no mention. They are asked about the Dogmen. There's no mention of them. There's just the seeing the last time they saw the 2 guys walking towards the airstrip. They are then pulled out of duty because they are now a liability in their boss's sense. So now you've got this one helicopter that has now entered into the area that just passed where these Dogmen were seen. And all of the electronics on that helicopter start to malfunction. And it's not going down, but everything is just randomly not working the way it should. There's a few bright lights, and the helicopter, then it's above the trees, and where Dana is watching all of this, they're like, where'd the helicopter go? We can't see this other helicopter. Boom. It's there, like right then. Everyone's just, now there's transmission, now, and everybody above on board that helicopter, the pilot and the co-pilot are all like, whoa, that was really weird, wow, da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, you literally were not visible to us. How did you go low? Did you land? What happened? We thought that you crashed. We thought something. And he's like, no. Now, when we saw some flashing bright lights. Boom, boom, nothing. Dana and his pilot didn't see any lights. There was no of that. And it's, now a whole different day. And these bright lights, these bright, like almost lightning flashes, and even daytime are very bright. everything is just not making sense to Dana at this point. He's like, what is, everybody's, what is going on? This other helicopter is told to fly back. We'll get the thermal imaging and we'll have them kind of, we know where that helicopter lost transmission. Let's see what that thermal imaging cam gets. And it goes over and it gets nothing. It gets nothing. It doesn't go directly above the area, but it's on the kind of on the side and it's scanning the area. Nothing. As it flies kind of to loop around, then it makes contact with Party B. And they are told to stay put, don't proceed any further, stop right where you are. There's seconds go by from right when that transmission, and there's just this light so bright. The sun is out, but it was everyone who witnessed this light. It was almost like this, just the sun magnified times 1,000 in the middle of this forest. Just gone. Like an explosion, but not. They are walking and they stop, and transmission is then, we made contact, we've got visual on the missing hikers. We've got visual. They are walking toward us. They're okay. The helicopter flies, the thermal flies over. Boom. Sure enough, there is 10 to 11 guys from the teams, Team A, Team B of Party B, and 2 other members that were not part of that. And confirmation is made. There is 13 guys there. What is, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to turn around and head back towards Bear Creek or what? Nope. Go to this area here, which was not all that far, but still would take a couple of hours. Proceed to walk but do medical on the 2 missing hikers. They are dehydrated. They are not hurt, but they are terrified. They look like they had just seen like the most horrific kind of whatever ever experienced by a man. They're just like, oh my God, what happened? Where did you guys come from? They are asked if they had heard the other party communicating with them before they were not seen anymore. Nope, they're picked up about an hour and a half later. And now it is kind of, let's, get the other people out of there. Let's pick this up, get out of here, get everyone secured, and let's figure out how to deal with the repercussions of what everything just happened. We still haven't figured out what we saw. Those wolves the size of the bears. We have no idea what these bright lights are. Now, that thermal imaging camera records. Now everyone's like, all right, we can at least watch the footage back and see what that bright light was. It had to have produced heat. It had to have. And they, they proceed to go over the footage, and there's a point where everything visually is different. So it's like a 15-second clip that doesn't match up to this part of the film to that part of the film. It's just this, you see nothing, but you see woods and whatever on this part of it, and then same part, but this 15-second patch where that light occurred, where that bright, there was no thermal heat or anything from the light. They expected to see some sort of like explosion or something. But what was seen for that 15-second or tiniest interval was in that location, a couple of these dog-like dogmen, and what appeared to be just this huge human, like huge compared to these dogmen. And then that 15 seconds ends and it's not there. It's almost like like a splice. It was almost like that 15 seconds had been spliced into that video. You've got, regular what's going on, and then this anomaly, and then regular what's going on in the location. Everyone's like, what in the hell are we looking at? Sure as shit, we know what these things look like on thermal, but what is that? What is that? We've got to figure out what that is. We've got to ask these guys what that is, and see if they had seen any contact, if they had gotten any contact with that. No, they did not. They had literally thought like everything had, been, they thought they had been lost, like they just lost, just like the other party, just like that, 7 days lost. These guys had lost something like 20 days. Dehydrated, underfed, starving. And the physical aspect of being hungry for 20 days, being dehydrated for 20 days was affecting these guys. Like they were having issues with their kidneys and such. Things that would go wrong if you didn't, eat or drink for X amount of time. Thermal's flown over, this, that, no more. There's no schematic, no splice of what was seen. But they keep reviewing the footage, the search and rescue and state police, because that was picked up by the state police helicopter. The next thing that has to happen is they have to notify the federal government. They have to notify, FFA or Federal Aviation, whatever, FAA. They have to notify Homeland Security. Any kind of anomaly, they have to notify all of these kind of federal government agencies to review this footage. The footage was handed over to the government and to these different agencies. Supposedly, per Dana and his father-in-law, who was responsible for getting him this job because he's in some higher up position. Supposedly, that footage was not every copy was given to the government, even though they were told to. This is what you give us. You give us the original. Do not make any copies, and we will pass it out to other agencies who need it. The FFA or the FAA, the Homeland Security says, we'll pass it out to all the other agencies, but you give it to us first. Do not make a recording of it. But sure as shit, I mean, who's not gonna? That's a fucking mystery, you know? Like, you have just technically caught something so unbelievable. It was like, the way he was describing it made me feel like that night at the Conjuring house, when Belle and I had caught, you know, we're downstairs and we're looking at, you know, this room and where the crooked neck lady is supposed to be, and we catch this strange anomaly on our camera, on the SLS camera, and then it's gone. Which you can see, I have it, it's on my channel. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to what that is. During this period of time, state police are, you know, everybody's kind of just, what the hell happened? Dana's father-in-law tells him, hey, you know what's weird is, and you know, everything kind of just, once resolved, once these two guys were safe, their families, and they were not notified of what happened. You know, everyone kind of said, you know, maybe you got amnesia or whatever, but you weren't gone for 20 days. You were gone for X amount of time. Their wives are telling them that, but everybody's like, you know, the teams still thinks they were gone for 7 more days than they were. These guys think they were gone for X amount. They're questioned by the government. They're questioned by, you know, doctors, everything. And the 2 guys do recover fine. And 7 other guys, or the 5 other guys, they recover. Everybody recovers. Except, like, they can't figure out. Nobody can say, hey, you know, when we were in this area and we lost contact with everybody, we didn't see these dogmen. We didn't see this. We didn't see that. Except for the fact that one of the guys had said to his wife, because at one point Dana's father-in-law had kind of developed a rapport with the wife, one of the wives, as being the lead of the search and rescue and such. You know, she tells him that the last thing they remember, that SOS signal that was sent, was because they were getting chased by these huge wolves. And they were running for their lives. They thought they were, you know, sure shit dead. And they ran into this kind of light. It occurred as they were running. And they were gone. And that's why those dogmen were surrounding that area and looking for them. They just, like, they were part of the anomaly, you know? Like, what the fuck? Where do these guys go? Where'd our dinner go? What happened? Why was there this? Was it a portal? Was it some sort of, like, entrance to a different part of this dimension? Was that a dimensional entrance or what? Did they photograph a dimension? Or video a dimension? You know, like, I almost think that they did. It sounds like it to me. I mean, there's nothing there for X amount of time, then 15 seconds. There's something quite visible on that thermal. And then nothing, you know, it goes right back to normal. So what was those flashes, like some sort of entrance or energy discharge from this dimension? And you've got these other dogmen that are in there, and then this huge humanoid that, I mean, you only have a kind of shadow of it. You know, they can't see what it looks like, but it's huge compared to the dogmen. So what happened? Was that a portal? I don't know. Nor does Dana. But he knows that after all of that in that one search and rescue mission, that since that happened, and anybody who was in that immediate area have all suffered from some sort of bad luck, for a lack of a better word. Some sort of just negative energy in their lives. To where everything was fine in Dana's life prior to that, and then shortly thereafter, everything kind of went to shit. And hit other co-pilot, search parties, anybody who was in that immediate area, all had, some sort of change for the worst in their lives happen. I have no idea what that was. To me, it sounds like a dimension. To me, it sounds like there was something, and somehow there was a glitch to where that dimension was visible via that thermal. It probably never. What is the odds? 1,000,000 to 1 more that they captured it, but they did. And then nothing? What do you think? With that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is treated with the respect that we deserve. It's unbelievable what you guys have done for this channel. You guys just make this channel what it is. So please, everyone, just stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant. Please keep an eye on your children, your pets, your family, and your friends. Because these creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those people that you love and care about, because it may just help save their lives someday. Hell, it might even help them open their eyes if they don't believe. Never stop. Never stop asking questions. Never stop searching for the truth. And God bless you all. And what do you think? Leave it in the comments. What do you think? Was it a dimension? Was it a portal opening up to another dimension? Was it just a glitch to where we weren't meant to see that? And what was that? What was that? Was that 3 dogmen and a huge humanoid? What was it? Was it something else? Leave it in the comments.